originally came from Portland, which is a very cool city. Portland's a very cool city as Vice President of Tourism, but she started her career in tourism in Israel. You know, a lot of tourism going on there, you know. And then Nebraska, and then you came to Tampa, and then Portland, and you made your way here. So she's got an incredible amount of experience, as well as, hang on a second, you currently chair the U.S. Travels Destination Council, and is the past chair of the Cultural Tourism Alliance, and also is fluent in both, well, of course, Hebrew and Spanish. So you got most of it covered, huh? All right, so please welcome from the TriValley Visitors Bureau, President Barbara Steinfeld.
I work in the tourism industry, and we're all type A personalities. I don't think I've ever been in another room as lively as tourism until I came here. And the real estate, this energy is just like the energy I'm used to dealing with in tourism, so that's great. And I was told the first thing I should tell you is, I already have a real estate agent. We moved here, and our house hasn't sold in Portland, and maybe we have a buyer now. And yeah, you saw Portland? And that's it. So we're living in the Hyatt House, and we're so anxious to buy something here, I can't even tell you. So that's my story as far as you guys are concerned. So let me tell you about Visit TriValley. Visit TriValley is a visitors association, so what does that mean? And I think I have a PowerPoint going here, so let's go to the next slide so we can tell you what we do. Yeah, the next slide would be great. There we go. So the vision that we have, that I have, that brought to Visit TriValley, is that we are the destination company to market this area for visitors to come from outside the region. So we want to be recognized as a leader outside of here, and also within, with a seat at the table, when it comes to economic development, when it comes to cultural arts, when it comes to tourism. Next slide, please. So our mission is to increase the economic impact, because it's all about the dollars that we bring in from visitors from the outside by bringing overnight visitors. Next slide. And our goal is very simple. Our goal is to increase room nights, that means people staying in hotels, on the weekends here in TriValley. So TriValley, you all know what TriValley is. Usually I have to explain. When they offered me the job, I had no idea what TriValley was, and part of our problem is that name, when it comes to name recognition for tourism around the country. TriValley, and I Googled it, and I think 5 came up, from Vermont and Ohio to California, and then I said, so what are the towns? And they told me the names of the cities, and I was like, yeah, I still don't know where I'm going, but we're gonna work with it. So we're embracing the name TriValley, and we're gonna make that a name that people know, so when we say Visit TriValley, they'll know what we're talking about. So how do we do that? Let's go on to the next slide. We have departments within Visit TriValley. We have a sales team, we have marketing and PR, and what is our last team there? Is marketing PR, or marketing and branding is separate from PR, and then we have sales. So we are the marketing arm for Visit TriValley. And I put out on the table, for example, our old visitor's guide. That's the one for this year. I don't know if there's some left there. Were they all taken? Yeah. But we have them in our office, and I don't like that visitor's guide. I came in, it was already done, and it really divides the cities up into 5 silos. And my goal is to take the themes that represent Visit TriValley, and maybe you'll recognize what those are. Wine and dine. So wine is a theme that goes across Visit TriValley. Outdoor activity. So we talk about hiking and biking and the trails and everything from Las Trampas to the Pleasanton Ridge. Talking about outdoor activity. That's another way to get visitors here. We're also going to talk about the arts and culture. Those are the themes that tie everything together. So instead of giving a Chamber of Commerce presentation and saying, well, here's Danville and here's Livermore, we're saying, what does a visitor want to do when they come to the area? They want to drink, they want to eat, they want to do their weddings, they want to visit the arts and go shopping. And shopping is another theme that ties together everything from Danville to Livermore. From the cute little downtowns that we have in 3 of our cities, to the big new Livermore Premium Outlets that's run by Simon, that is bringing international visitation here to our region. So we want to capitalize on that. When those buses pull up at Livermore, we want them to stay longer than a couple hours to go shopping. How do we get them to spend the night? Visiting friends and relatives is really nice, and we're glad when people come here to visit friends and relatives. And a visitor spends a certain amount of money on a day trip. It's around $90. If we get somebody here for the day, they come to a festival, an event, they go shopping, that's great. But if we can get them to stay overnight, that number jumps up to more than $400 per room. That means 2 people in a room, what they spend on their meals, what they spend on the room, what they spend on transportation, maybe they fill up their car with gas, they go shopping, they eat out. All of that together is a $400+ hit. It's about $424 per room that we can get people to stay overnight. So our focus is on overnight. We call it heads in beds in our industry. Next slide. I have a lot of slides I'm going to skip through. I'm going to skip through all of these, so let's go to the next, and the next, and the next. If I had time, I'd talk to you about this. And we'll keep going. So, we're going to stop here. So I want to talk about branding, because I think for you as marketers in the region and for us. So I want to give you an example of some of the things we do. One of the major things that brings people in over the weekends is weddings. When people come for weddings, all of the hotels benefit because they might do the wedding in wine country or use the caterers and the flowers and all of that, but they have to stay somewhere, and the wedding parties will stay in the hotels all throughout the region, which is great. So we produce a piece specifically on bridal. Golf is a big deal here. We have about 14 golf courses that we get to promote throughout the region, because we also include the unincorporated areas of Alamo and Sunol, so there's golf courses in each of those. So we have a golf-focused brochure as well. That's one of the ways we promote. Wine, as I mentioned, is the big deal. I have inserts here if anyone is interested. Touring and Tasting magazine, if you've ever heard of it. We go into touring and tasting every year, and we have a big deal on TriValley in Touring and Tasting magazine to promote the wine. We also are in magazines such as VIA, which is the AAA magazine. So we put advertising in VIA. And another example that I've just picked up is the latest touring and tasting, so you can see the kind of advertising that we do for the region. So we really see ourselves as that advertising and marketing arm to get people to know who we are, where we are, and what there is to do here. So that's some of our branding. Let's move on to the next slide and see what we've done there. We have a new website. If you haven't been, go to visit TriValley.com. That's our website. And if you haven't liked us yet on Facebook, we're trying to break the 4,000 mark. We just started with our website. That isn't a high number. But if you would go to Facebook and visit TriValley.com, then I can go back to the office and say, see, I spoke this morning, and boom, we just went over the 4,000 mark. So there we are. We have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Instagram, we have Pinterest. So we're hitting all the social media channels to get the word out about TriValley. Let's go to the next one. So I gave some examples already of our print and our digital, and that's a list of who we're working with. Where do we place our advertising, and what do we do about it? Let's move on past advertising. We even do some outdoor, meaning billboards, and we do some television. We're working on a campaign right now with NBC where we have little video vignettes where we feature people saying, hi, I'm Nancy, and this is my TriValley, and then we show 30 seconds of activities of what Nancy loves to do, and then she finishes and says, that's my TriValley, what's yours? So we have one in Spanish. We work with the couple that owns Baroni's restaurant, and we showed all the people dancing on Thursday night for their TriValley in Spanish, and we just finished shooting a video yesterday with Bob and Joyce Shapiro. And Bob and Joyce Shapiro, I don't know if you know them, they're very active in the community. They skew a little older, like me, and we know that our demographic for coming here isn't always, families and young, gorgeous, beautiful people. We want older, gorgeous, beautiful people like Bob and Joyce. So we filmed them yesterday doing, hi, this is our TriValley, what's yours? And we showed them doing wine tasting and sitting in the courtyard at the Four Points and going into the art gallery and shopping on the street. So we have all the different activities from Lake Duval, kayaking, to hiking on the ridge, to wine tasting in the wineries, and we're trying to feature all the different things that represent TriValley to different people. So maybe you have your favorite thing that you like about TriValley. We're going to run a contest on Facebook about you producing your own, hi, this is my TriValley, what's yours? Showing you doing what you like to do the best. So stay tuned for that. Again, go back to our Facebook and like us so you can get online, and then submit your own TriValley, what you like about it. Let's move on. Next slide. And so, this perfectly aged without the attitude. When we go into the wine country that everybody knows, like Napa and Sonoma, how do we differentiate? How do we know who we are? How do we get people to, they're already tasting wine there, been there, done that. How do we get them here? That's one of our billboards that we put up in the other wine countries. Next. More examples of some of the ads and the way that we're putting out the image of who we are. We can move on. Next slide. Okay, are we moving forward? Next slide. Are we, yeah, okay. And there, we talked about weddings already, so let's move on and past that. One of the things that we do is when we find an event, like the Little League that just came up in Livermore, and we see that this event has the potential for bringing people in to stay overnight in hotels, and it also has a leg so that it will go on year after year, we can help support that with marketing dollars. We're not a sponsorship or a granting organization, but we will do marketing co-ops with events that have the potential to bring people in, like Splatter is coming up in Dublin in September. And that's the kind of an event that we think will grow and can draw people in from around the region to come and stay overnight, potentially. So we just did the baseball one that you just saw to help Little League. We can move on, next slide, please. And there's our social media, all the different ways in which we interact with social media. So if you're a tweeter, you can go to our Twitter site and follow us there. Let's move on to the next. You can see there's our Facebook, and we're trying to get more. And we actually hired a company to work with us in the coming years so that we can actually get our social media much stronger than it is today. It's something we just started, we need to work on. And next slide. Twitter, we can move on. Next slide. And our Pinterest. This is something cool. If you can see the pictures above me, one of the women in the office, we have somebody who's in her 20s. And so it's great because she's really into Pinterest and all the social media. And she put together this board on the site of everything in TriValley. And we have a Pinterest site, and that's one of the things we're really trying to push because it's popular among the young, so we can hit all of our demographics. Next slide. Those are just some of the numbers that we report out to our industry. I think we can move on. We're looking at room nights, and all of these reports are all important to the hotel industry. And I'll stop here for a second. You know, the way that we're funded, I'm not sure if you know, but we have a business investment district called the TBID, the Tourism Business Investment District, where 36 hotels in TriValley have self-assessed a $2 per night room fee. We don't call it a tax because they self-assess, and they vote it in every 5 years to decide to pay $2 extra, have their guests pay $2 extra on a room, and that's the money that is our budget. So all of the tourism tax that goes on the rooms, the normal tourism tax here, I think it's around 10%, that goes directly to all the cities for general fund. So all the work that we do to bring visitors in overnight to stay in the hotels supports all the infrastructure of each one of the cities in TriValley. So when it comes to schools and roads and firefighters, all of that is funded by the general fund, and the tourism tax is a major part of that in each city that helps fund the general fund of each town. So the tourism work that we're doing is not just self-serving where we get the $2 a night and we can do all the marketing for the region, but we're actually creating help to each of the cities in their general fund. We no longer go after the general fund, TOT, tourism occupancy tax. We don't go after that. The cities get 100% of it, and we only get the $2 per night on the rooms. Just so you know, don't ever look at a visitor and go, oh, those damn tourists. It's like, yay, the tourists are here. They're helping me pay less tax every year in my city. So I'm going to move on. These partnerships are all the technical things that we do in our office on how we track our business. So let's move on to the next slide. Next slide also, it's all tourism related stuff. And so where are we going? What are the niche markets and the new marketing direction that we're heading in? We're going to take a look at sports because we think that a lot of the sports tourism can bring a lot here, again, year after year. And tour and travel. We haven't gone after that leisure business to get people to come here on weekends and be a visitor here in TriValley. One of the things we need to do is that the people that live here need to believe that this is a tourism destination. Not like, oh, what do people want to do here? That's the last thing we want to hear. If somebody walks into a taxi cab or a front desk person, they go, so what's there to do? And then somebody says, nothing. That's the last thing we want. We want people to go, well, we have shopping in 3 adorable downtowns, and we have hiking on Pleasanton Ridge, and we've got kayaking in Lake Val, and da-da-da-da-da, and we've got dining, and we've got California cuisine, and that's what we want to hear. So we want the local people to understand that they live in a beautiful tourism destination, and then we want to bring the group tours in to enjoy it as well. Let's see what else we've got on our slides here. So our leisure focus is really where we're going, because if we want more people on the weekends doing things, we need to go after the leisure visitor. Our hotels are really happy Monday to Wednesday. They've got corporate business and the hotels are full and the rates are high, and then boom, the weekend comes and everything drops. And the hotel rates are much lower on weekends, and they're really looking for business, and that's when they turn to us as the marketing arm to say, help us fill those rooms on the weekends. And the way we do that is by turning TriValley into a thriving tourism destination, and then people will want to come here for overnight. So that's me in 15 minutes, because I wanted to leave room for questions. I could talk, for 2 hours about Visit TriValley and tourism in general and what we do. Do you have any questions?
Great presentation. One of the things that I know the area has been a big focus here has been the Livermore Valley wine country, and I know that it's selling real estate and helping sell a lot of wine. The big focus is getting people to Livermore and the Livermore Valley wine country. I know that's a huge branding effort. I find that this is a new thing, I guess. I hadn't noticed the TriValley portion of it before, but how did the two of you guys get along? Because I would imagine that we all benefit, but there's definitely two different messages going on here.
No, it's really one and the same message, and we get along beautifully. The executive director of the Livermore Valley Wine Growers region is on our board. Chris Chandler sits on the board, and we're talking about how do we cooperate together. I just got back from a conference like 2 days ago, and one of the main things they told us about promotion for tourism is pick your one story and use that story as the hook. Now, you might have 20 things that you want to talk about in your region to do, but what is the one thing that's going to bring people here? Use that and then build the rest around it. Well, the one thing that's going to bring people to TriValley is the wine region. So that has to be the focus from a marketing perspective. We pick wine, and then we talk about shopping and dining and hiking and biking and golf and all of the other stuff. But to get them here, it's about the wine. And we need to realize that. And I keep talking to the hotels that are in Dublin and Danville and San Ramon that are all part of the region. They go, well, that's Livermore. What are you doing for me? And I'm saying, build a package. Put together a wine package. How many minutes does it take to drive from San Ramon to Livermore wine country? 20 minutes? 22 minutes? You're really in the same region. So build on the wine, and then we can start promoting all the rest of the stuff. So we really work beautifully together, and we do not have a conflicting message. We're incorporating that message into us. Other questions? Hang on, Brad.
So if the people coming for wine are most likely out of the region, so how are you identifying where they are, and how are you advertising to get them to come here?
The way that we're advertising to get them to come here, and we're focusing on the Bay Area first, because people can come from the Bay Area just like they go to Napa for a weekend or overnight. So we have a huge population base within the Bay Area. We're focusing on that, and then our reach is getting bigger, and the way we do that is through social media, because social media doesn't have borders of where it goes. Some of our advertising is localized, but a lot of it is even nationwide. We're going to be doing an insert in US Airways magazine coming up in February that is nationwide. We're looking at USA Today has a travel section on California coming out in December. 6 million copies of USA Today go out. We want an ad in the California section. So that's how we're expanding our reach beyond. And I wanted to touch back on one last thing you said about transportation to the Livermore region and to the whole area. We're doing a research study. In fact, I have to be back in my office at 9:45. We're hiring a research company to give us a tourism assessment of what do we have and what are we missing. And I'm positive that what they're going to come up with, one of the things we're missing is transportation. When the visitor gets off BART, or when the visitor gets off the airplane in Oakland, how do they get here? What do they do? How do they get around the wine region? So I'm hoping that some kind of transportation infrastructure will come out as a result of what we're looking at.
Hi, I'm going to continue with the wine theme. And I was up in Napa in June. And of course, guess what? I talked to a lot of people. None of them were from around the Bay Area. They were from the East Coast, from Europe. And I'm like, so what brings you out here? And they're like, the wine. We planned it for a week. We're going to all these wineries. Then we're going to go down to Santa Barbara. But nobody said we're coming to the TriValley.
We have not done international tourism marketing yet. And we need to really build our base locally first, within the United States, domestically, before we head out internationally. And you're absolutely right. We need marketing and we need dollars and reach and expansion of what we're doing in order to get those visitors to have Livermore
Yeah.
and TriValley on their lips like they do Napa and Sonoma.
But there was a lot of East Coast people from New York City, Boston, well, probably Florida too, but I mean, the ones I spoke to were East Coast, and they were coming out here for a week, going specifically to different wine regions in California.
And that's why we're advertising in the wine region. That's why we align ourselves with San Francisco Travel. San Francisco Travel, we're within their region, how the state of California divides up the state into travel regions. So we align ourselves with San Francisco so that when people think, like one of the other ads we put out is San Francisco's other wine country. You know, we're trying to get that message out there through many different channels, and that's a perfect example of why. Okay, there's a question. Hold on, we have one right here.
I have a question about the name, the TriValley. So, you know, it's the San Francisco East Bay, or it's the Santa Barbara, whatever wine country. So TriValley doesn't have a city name in it. People don't know what we're talking about when we say, oh, we're in the TriValley. So we have to say we're in the East Bay, San Francisco East Bay, TriValley region, but no one's ever heard of it. So how do we get, I just don't see TriValley being a worldwide recognized name. So how do we switch that and make it the San Francisco TriValley or the?
Well, yeah, I agree with you because one of the first things I asked when I interviewed for the job before I got it was, can we change that name? How do we, who knows that? And I agree that when I got here and I found out that we straddled 2 counties and that we're 5 cities and that we're 3 valleys and that we're not the only thing in the East Bay, because I would love to call it East Bay and identify it with San Francisco, but I was like stuck with TriValley. I don't know what else to call it. And so I said, well, if that's what we're stuck with, then we're going to run with it. And give us a couple of years and people will know what TriValley is. Because I just don't know what else we can call it. I mean, we advertise it as San Francisco's other wine country, the sunny side of the bay, all those things. But as a name, we can't pick one city when there's 5 represented. And we can't pick one county and call it that either. We're really stuck with a really bad name.
A lot of times when you go up to the wine country, when you think of the wine country, you think of bed and breakfast. How many are offered here versus up there? Probably next to nothing.
1, Purple Orchid. Purple Orchid Bed and Breakfast. That's another thing that the Tourism Assessment Needs Study is going to show us. We don't have a 5-star luxury spa in the wine country. We don't have boutiques, B&Bs in the wine country, and those are the things that we need. So we're doing the study, we're investing a lot of money to get that study done, and that's what it will show us.
Any other questions?
Thank you for your time.
All right, let's give Barbara a big round of applause. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Looks like she has some handouts. You know, that name thing is kind of interesting, huh? But hey, look, just like all of us, we have parents that gave us our names. We gotta live with it, right? We gotta deal with it. So if you have any community announcements, Wendy